Welcome to another episode of We Don't Die. I'm your host, Sandra Champlain, author of the international best-selling book called We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. And just a reminder, my home base is wedon'tdie.com, where you can always find things like medium classes, our free Sunday gathering, inspirational service with medium demonstration included, past episodes of the show. We've got a great Facebook group. And if you'd like a free PDF copy of my book, at the bottom of the page there at wedon'tdie.com, just enter your name and your email address. It says you get the first few chapters. The secret is it's the entire book. Chapter 10 is about grief. I think it's one of the most important chapters. And I know a lot of people come to our show today because we have a loved one who has passed. So sending much love to all. Well, let's meet our wonderful guest. Our guest today is a mom, a wife, a stage 4 cancer patient, and a minister in training. She retired from the U.S. Army as a research psychologist after 30 years, publishing over 60 works on stress and coping. Dr. Melba Stetz is the author of the brand new book called Healing Talks, a dying patient's story, written to motivate others through her experiences and how to cope with stress and loss, including by communicating with our loved ones who have passed. You can find out more about her at her website, which is drmelbastetz.com, and just put the DR in front of Melba. Dr. Melba, welcome to We Don't Die.
Hi, Sandra. Thanks for having me.
Oh,
Thanks for having me.
So nice to have you here. I am just south of Boston, Massachusetts, as we are talking. Would you tell everyone where you are today?
I'm from Puerto Rico. I'm here in Puerto Rico right now. My husband is from Michigan. So last year when we got diagnosed again, when he came back, we just decided to go back and forth, So when it's too cold in Michigan, we come here. When it's too hot here, we go back there.
Yes, and we're recording this in the beginning of January of 2025, and it is cold in Michigan.
Yes.
Melba, tell us about you, your story. Let us fall in love with you.
Well, first I want to say thank you again because Sandra, I've been following you and I follow, of course, our beautiful trans medium. But I wanted to tell you that when I read your book, I loved it. I just couldn't leave it. I couldn't put it down. I was like, oh my God, so much common sense. Is that I love how you presented your story, and I love how easy anyone can just relate to it. So I've been following forever, and I also want to thank you because when I had when my father left me a message in my phone, he left me some voice messages. I remember me emailing you about potential EVP, and you were like, "Yes, that could be it," and you gave me that comment. I think I even cited you in my book. Anyway, so I'm from Puerto Rico, and here it's mostly Catholic, but we also have some voodoo in some part of the island, and we have some spiritism in another part. And one, I remember that when I was little, I used to like most kids talk to some imaginary friends. They call it imaginary friends, right? And I remember my mom saying, "Oh my God, how creative you are in your mind! Well, what imagination!" But to me, I was having like a full blast conversation with two or three, and I would try to relate to her when she would come pick me up, and she'd be like, what, oh my God, what imagination. And so that started shining off my practice or my awakening. But later on in school, I remember one day, it's in the book too, I wanted some candy and I didn't have enough money for it. When I was in school, it was a Catholic school, and I remember me praying to my guardian angel, "Please, I wish I could have, please, 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 I don't have money." The candy lady is at the end of the hall. The other kids are at the other side of the hall. I'm on the second floor, so there's no one in front of me or behind me. So I'm just like with my hands like this, praying to the angel. All of a sudden, I hear click, and I literally saw a dime between my shoes. And that's what I needed for the candy. You might be thinking, why would the spirit give me money for candy? But that's what happened, because I was like, what? And I ran, I bought the candy. And then throughout life, it was just like, I just had a sense, maybe you can call it intuitive, sensitive. I just had a sense of how things should be that I was relating with, to the point that when I married my husband about 25 years ago, he would be like, "You're so lucky. You're so lucky." Like, he would try to mansplain to me how to throw a dart in a specific place or golf or whatever. And I would be like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." And I would just go with what I felt. And I would end up winning. And even in puzzles or whatever, I would just know B. And he would be like one day we were watching a show about, the question was about the lakes in Michigan. Obviously, he knows them more than me. So I really didn't study that. And I was like, "No, it's B." And he's like, "No, it's A." And I know it's B. And then the person in the show was like, "It's B." And he's like, "Huh?" So it was like a knowing. I'm very sensitive, like too much energy. Like, I would go to a room and I would just feel if it was the right place to go in or not. And I would tell people, "I don't like that person," for example. And at the beginning, my friends, they would be like, "Oh, why are you saying that? I just don't like that person. Be careful." And then later on, they would turn around, days, weeks, months later, they'd be like, "Oh my God, you were so right." I have like three friends that they ended up having the partner that they have right now because I told them, yeah, he's the right one. So it was just like a knowing. If you're asking me more about the book per se, is that what you were asking me, to tell more about this or more
Well, I'd
about the
like to hear
story? Or
about you and your story, and because you went into psychology for work.
yes. So my father was a physician, medical doctor, and I started studying that, but I just wanted to be on my own. And I like more English. When I was in Puerto Rico, more English, and I wanted fitness. And my brother was put in a military academy, and I just decided to join it. And then I just continue. I like the military. And in the military, eh, I had some experiences, let's put it that way. And I realized that psychology, it made me learn a lot about human behavior. So, because in Puerto Rico, we have, for example, everyone has different skin colors. So we don't, so if there's a difference, it's more about socioeconomic status than skin color. And in the States, even though we're part of the United States, when I moved to the mainland for the military, I learned, about sexism and racism and, a lot of experiences at that time that I was 18, 19. And I just realized, no, I think I'm more into human behavior. So I love the human behavior. And I was very analytical, very left brain. So I like research. So when I was in the military, before that, before I left, no, I went to the military and then I wasn't enlisted. Then I came back and I finished my other degree and I got my other license of psychology. When I finished my enlisted tour and I came back to Puerto Rico and I finished one degree more and I finished the license of my license of psychology, one of my aunts took me to a spiritism, like a seance. And I've never been in one. Well, the moment I went in, it was like under a tent. The moment I went in, I just felt like I got sick, like a stomach bug or something. Like I started sweating and it was horrible. I had to go to the restroom just to pour some water in my face. I felt so hot. And I went out and she said, "What's going on?" I said, I gotta tell that lady that she has to apologize to her daughter. I didn't know anyone. And she said, "What are you saying?" She needs to apologize to her daughter. So she told the president or the guy in charge of you can call it, El Santo, or the person in charge of the Santos, let's put it that way. Uh, so he said, "Go ahead and tell the lady." So I told the lady, "Excuse me, ma'am, please, I feel like you need to apologize to your daughter." And he said, "Is that true?" And she said, "That is so true." And then the moms start hugging the daughter, they kissed each other, and then they put our hands in a bucket of water. Then that night, when I went to bed, I remember I was laying down on my side. I got glued to the bed. I couldn't disconnect. I was like frozen, and I could hear voices in different languages. Like the movies, The Gremlins. And I'm like, oh my God. So I start praying, Padre nuestro que estás en el cielo, our Father, everything, and Holy Mary. And then there was a picture that my mother had of Christ, and then it would change to the Virgin. The way I was seeing it, it was Jesus, and then it was the Virgin, Jesus and the Virgin. Then I'm praying until I don't know how many minutes it was. To me, it was like an eternity. I was able to get off my bed and ran to the hall. I told my mom, and to this day, all I remember is her being like, oh, okay, don't worry about it. Just, you know. So later on, when I realized, as I was writing my book, I learned that my grandmother, she got 8 kids, my grandmother, her mother, used to be able to talk to people. People would go to her, and I didn't know that, my grandma. And then she started coming through as I started practicing with other mediums, because I actually started getting into this during COVID, because my husband and I, we were both high risk because of cancer. So I told him, this is the time I'm going to really learn about what's going on, because this is not normal. It's like when I'm in the flow, I just like know, and things just happen. And so I started learning that my grandmother she's very happy because I'm the first one in the family that came out of the religious closet, per se, the Catholic closet. That I like many things about Catholicism, but I think it stops in a point where I have to pray and hope and keep grieving, while spiritualism or mediumship, I call it medium therapy as well, has given me some tools to be able to try to communicate and also help people communicate with their loved ones who have passed physically. So I've learned that this has been in our family for a while, but the purpose of the book is just to tell people that anyone can do it. And I know it's not the first, nor it will be the last book. And it took me 2 years because, like I said, I got diagnosed last year. I told the new oncologist when we moved to Michigan, I told the new oncologist, I know my cancer came back, and I was dismissed. And things started to happen. I started breaking. I chew a bubble gum and I broke my tooth. I bumped into a table and I broke my toe. I said, no, I know it's back. I don't need to keep breaking down. So they did more tests and stuff. So it took me 2 years because I was also trying to, and I stopped it. And talking with my parents during I call it healing talks. My daughter helped me find the name for it. Talking with my parents has helped me heal more because I'm not afraid. I'm less afraid now of stop breathing, because I know that every time we meditate, if we sit in the power and we meditate deeply, that's really what's there for us. It's a beautiful feeling. It's like when we float or whatever in water. It's just like a very healing feeling. So I'm not afraid of it. I'm stage 4. I have to say that every day I imagine light to come through my crown chakra all the way down, healing light. And even though I'm on chemo, I already did radiation and other things. That has helped me as well, because if you look at my MRI or my pictures, last year I looked like a Christmas tree, lighted all over. And now it looks like 50% less. My subtitle, it says, A Dying Patient Story. We're all dying. And I know that in our way of thinking, in our world, we try not to say that people die, only our physical body die. But I left it like that instead of saying transition or change, because I wanted anyone to read this book, to be attracted to it. Do you have any questions?
Oh, I have lots of questions. I do. Well, first of all, let's talk about the afterlife, because I know you've studied at the Arthur Findlay College. You've studied all kinds of things. Tell us a little bit about the training and the different things that you've explored that really have in your heart that we don't die, that we go on.
So when I was during COVID, I was physically in Hawaii. We were living in Hawaii because that's where I retired. And I took different classes. I went online. I couldn't go in person because when I wanted to go, then I was physically sick. To Arthur Fielding College, and I also belong to a church, Eternity Connection, in Canada. So I start because I speak two languages and because I'm very visual and I like learning different ways. I start taking classes everywhere and different groups, circles, etc. And my father came in through so many times that he helped me realize that too, that here the world hasn't really, my father didn't really leave this world. He still comes as needed. Eh, so we don't die because we stay around. Our essence stays. Our body dies, but our essence doesn't. In regards to training, so I went to some of those trainings, and also I'm training in the spiritualism religion. I'm trying to be an ordained minister, but I don't want to claim that I'm just going to be this or that, because even though I'm in the spiritualism as an ordained minister, I still believe many things from the Catholic world. Like I believe in angels, and a lot of spiritualists in the United States don't believe in angels, but in Canada they do. So it's that interesting. I believe in angel. I will always pray to my guardian angel, and I believe there's angels here on earth and angels in the spirit world. And going back to your question, how do I come up with the realization that we don't die? Is because I think the main thing will be not only the classes, but also, again, my father coming through, the essence of my father. My father coming through anytime I call him. He will come through another medium practicing. I'll be like, Papi, por favor, ven, ven, ven. I got here. Your dad. Is your dad a spirit? Yes. And it's like, and even my mother-in-law came once to Hawaii after her husband passed. And I had paid already for a reading with Thomas John, who had taken classes with him. And I put it on YouTube. Anyway, so I start talking to my husband's father. Please, no, come through. Forget about me. Just come for your wife because she just visit. Please, please, please. The first person, Thomas John, he doesn't know me from Adam. He doesn't remember me as a student or nothing. He's very busy. The first person he called was us. He goes, I got this person for Bernie, which is my husband's mother. And his name, and anyway, so Nor, my father-in-law, came through walking. And he would not believe in any of this. My father, at least he believed a little bit about psychology, metaphysics, a little bit. So many examples. My grandmother, how many times people have told me, your grandmother's here, Maria. And you can say, oh, Maria is a typical Spanish name. No, we also have Rosa, we have Ana, but Maria, and so it's like Maria. So because they keep coming through more than the classes, more than the didactic part, the experiential part has been that people that I know keep coming through. Even a sergeant that he worked for me in my office, and something happened and he ended up dying in Hawaii. He got very drunk and a bouncer apparently pushed him and he ended up on the floor in Chinatown. He has gone through. So I know I communicate with people that have been physically with me in the world with me. So I know that we don't die. We don't die, just like you say.
There's nothing like a good medium reading to
Right.
know that they come through. Above and beyond Maria and the names is those shared memories and those feelings. And it's good mediums, I think, are rare, really, really good ones. And I think, like you taking classes, who we work with in those medium classes are our loved ones. So they come through and they just give so much evidence. So even if people don't wish to become a medium, I always say, try a medium class because it makes such a difference. It really does. Melba, do you feel your loved ones with you besides going to a medium? Have you felt them? I'm sure you talk to them, but have you ever felt that they're close, they're near?
With me, yes, I feel my father all the time. And then when I'm more into the when it's more like left brain, my father. When it's more about subtle things like talking with my daughter or whatever, my mother. I feel them around. And I've learned through different classes, through different tutors, that uh, they're busy doing things. They're not like waiting for us. They're not crying, whatever. They're doing their own thing. However, they can be in two places at the same time. So whenever we call them, they can be here. And we should make dates with them too. Like when we say with our spirit guides, etc., we should make dates. You continue talking with them as normal. It's so healing and it's so beautiful. I was going to call this book Medium Therapy, but I thought some people might be like, oh, I don't want to read therapy stuff. Or some people would be like, what's medium stuff? But I really think mediumship is therapy. And I only was interested in psychic stuff. I love psychic and guessing. And when I'm watching shows or whatever, I'm always, people don't like watching shows with me because I know what the person's going to do or say. It's like I could write scripts. But and mediumship to me, it was like, "Oh, I don't understand that and it's too hard." But honestly, I've heard and I've healed so much and I've seen so many people healing. To me, that's priceless.
I agree. And I think the experiences you've had, even since being a little girl and having that dime show up for candy, wasn't necessarily about the candy, but it was just the power of prayer and asking and knowing that you're not alone and that you're supported. So I think all of those things that happened when you were young set you up for where you are today.
Mm, thank you.
I think so. Anyways, I want to talk a little bit about coping, about stress, about who you were in the military, what kind of work you did, because I know you bring that forward because, oh, there's so much. Every person listening or watching right now is going through something. Many people grief, many people fear of the unknown, whether it's an illness, whether it's the death of a loved one. There's so many things. Could you share
Right.
with us just a little bit about your past, what you did in the military, and maybe some words of advice or help or comfort or belief?
Well, I think honesty is very important. And we all gonna die, or all our bodies are gonna die. Even though we're trying cryogenics or we're trying different things, I don't think we're, at least today, as of today, I don't know of anyone that can claim I'm living over 150 or 200 years. So at some time our body are going to decay and stop working. So I think that's the first thing that people should be aware of. It's unstoppable. It's not gonna, we can't prevent that. Therefore, we should make peace with it. And then the second thing that I would suggest would be for people to know that, just like again, when you're floating in water or when you're meditating or when you have like a beautiful, beautiful feeling that you hug someone that you love, for example, that's what it will feel when our bodies are gone, because there's no more pain. Right now, I have at least 5 vertebrae that the doctors have shot cement into them because the cancer has eaten up my spine. So I have at least 10 vertebrae that is being eaten up. So I will have, like I tell my husband and my daughter, I will, and the moment I pass, no more pain, no more pain. So to please realize we're all going, our bodies are gonna stop working, and whatever state of mind that we love, we really enjoy it, that's what it's going to be. If we're in the right frame of mind, of course, if we are people that tend to do good and be good, that's what we're going to be going to. Like attract likes and light attract lights. So we're going to gravitate into that. So it's just a continuum. So we should start seeing into that. What I suggest a lot of myself and suggest all the people that ask me is start apologizing to everyone. I already did that. Apologize to everyone and forgive everyone. And try from now on not to have anger against people or things, because those things hold us back. It's like steal energy from us. So when we pass, we can be in the best state of mind or state of essence. Still, of course, when we pass, we still, as I understand, we still have opportunities to keep progressing as spirits and being better spirits. But I think that if we are aware of it right now, we should be doing it now. So when we pass, we don't have to be trying to and then I will tell you about the military. And most of the spirits that come through for me are parents, mostly a fathers that come. And the way that I know what they want is that they come, I see them, and they're looking down. And I know right away they're coming to apologize. And those are the most that I've also cancer patients because I've asked for it. But so instead of for us to wait until we pass and then come to apologize, let's do it now. So that's my suggestion. In regard to the military, in order for you to be a U.S. Army research psychologist, you have to have a PhD and you have to do research. And I don't like eating animals. So I didn't want to even kill animals. I didn't want to manipulate animals. So I started using virtual reality. So, for example, when someone would come with me with some phobia, with arachnophobia, they're scared of the spider. There's different options. We put them in the room with there might be a spider in a box, or we'll talk to them about spiders. Or what I would do is I would put a virtual spider, so it's like a fake spider, and we both will talk about it. And then I'm also neurofeedback certified, so I would put sensors in their brain and in their bodies. I'm also biofeedback certified, so I would get their physiological reaction and their verbal reaction, and with the intent to talk about it. That the more we talk about it, the more the patient or the client or the participant will understand that, hey, it's just a spider. It's not every spider is poisonous. It's not going to hurt, So that type of confrontation with the phobia will help them lessen their fear, their mental fear and their physiological fear. So that's what I used to work more in when I was in the military. Stress management, help them confront their problems. A lot of times, for example, people will say, I'm not upset, but then you take the blood pressure is super high after you address something like the problem with their boss or whatever. So I will be like, you're not upset, but look at your blood pressure. It went up after I talked to you about your boss. That is, you're having problems with your boss. So I was able to talk to them, not only get information from what they're saying, but also them being able to experience it physiologically speaking. And then the virtual reality, I think it has helped me a little bit with my clairvoyance because it's easy for me to imagine things, and I can tell people to be able to visualize things because they're not completely real. It's just like a perception of something that helps you communicate in the sense of.
Were you able to do that, Melba, when you first were told about cancer? Because you're helping other people with phobias and things. I would assume or imagine that there was fear involved, fear of the unknown. How did you deal with that? And could you use some of these practices to make peace? Because you never give up hope. Healing is possible. There's different types of healing. Could you tell us a little bit about that path?
My first cancer, when I got my first cancer, it was very ironic because I was always very fit. I took a DNA testing and they say, oh, the probability of you having cancer is so low, even though my mom and my sister had it and a lot of my cousins. So I was like, oh, I probably won't ever have it. If I ever have it, I'll be like in my 70s, whatever. So, and I was vegetarian, etc. So when I got it, I was angry and I was scared, and I felt that I have to be responsible because our daughter was adopted from China. She was abandoned in a box when she was 1 day old. So that responsibility is like, I cannot die now. So what I was able to take out of my stress management was identifying that this is a big stressor, and I had to manage to balance better my schedule. I was kind of more in the workaholic side of the spectrum. So I started pulling hours. Like I was already retired, but I was still working. I started working with a neurologist and I was working. So I started pulling hours. So working less and doing an analysis again of what's more important, priorities. So it was my health and my family versus my work, because work will always be there. And also my responsibility, which it was my daughter. She was so young and I didn't want to leave. Also, what helps me was meditations, breathing. If we don't find our breath, if we don't take control of our breathing, we can't do anything, because we're freezing or we're fleeing. We have to relax our nervous system so we can actually think better, because our frontal lobe, we need to have hyperoxygenated. We have to have oxygenated blood on our brain, on the frontal lobe, on the first part of our brain, so we can have executive functioning, so we can make rational things. So in order to do that, we have to be relaxed, because if we're in fear, if we're anxious, all the oxygen, all the blood with the oxygen goes to protect our vital organs that we survive. So we have to be very relaxed. I know you know this. We have to be very relaxed so we can actually have oxygen in our forehead, in our forebrain, in our frontal lobe, so we can make the right decision. So I had to work on that. I had to, again, reorganize everything and go back to breathing more. And I survived that. I'm a survivor for my first cancer.
How
And
long ago was that
it was like
diagnosis?
2017, 2 weeks before my father died here in Puerto Rico because of Hurricane Maria. He died during Hurricane Maria. So I'm glad that he was not physically here to hear that, his third daughter has cancer.
Right. Well, the love is still there. And then you went in remission for a while, and then you said a
Yes,
year ago,
yes, like 5 years
5 years. Okay. Okay. And then back.
back.
You seem to me like your soul is shining through, that you are so positive, you're strong, you're energetic, you're inspiring.
Ah, you're so sweet.
I think the spirit world and the angels are going to get as much use out of you while you're here. So your job is definitely not up.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I'm trying. When I asked the oncologist last year, she told me most people last 2 to 5 years. So right now I've been a year, almost a year and a half. And I tell God and I tell, the spirit intelligence, I'm not ready. I have a daughter, she's 20. I'm not leaving yet. I have a husband, I have a dog, I have friends, family, people I help, church. I'm not ready. But they all know, and we updated the will and everything. They all know that if it happens, I'm not going to have any pain, and I will try my best to come back and communicate. I already told my husband that I'm probably going to start moving his glasses, because he always put his glass in the same place. I said, until he says, okay, Melba, I know it's you, I'm going to start messing with his glasses.
Oh, that's great. I think those of us who have taken medium training and believe we are maybe not one step ahead, but when we do arrive, it's like, okay, all right, I know this is all real. How do I communicate? What can I do? What can we do? I wanted to say, because your advice that you gave earlier was so good, how you were talking about forgiving and making those amends and all that. It's almost as if you have a life review while you're here.
Yes.
It sounds what it sounds like. And then also you said no anger. And someone recently just said, if you could see life through the eyes of God or spirit, and you can see other people as they're divine, then you have a sense of understanding, being forgiving, almost like they're little children and they know not what they do. So the advice you gave, I think, is wonderful. It is to handle everything now before we get there.
Yes.
Is that right?
For the people that believe that can happen, because a lot of people believe we die and that's it. So for those people, then I guess they don't have to worry. I mean, they'll have their own lesson later on if that happens. But For those of us that believe that there's an afterlife, I would say, yeah, once we're aware of this, we should do the life review right now as much as possible. We don't have to wait for to have that being shown somehow through the tunnel or however we believe we're passing. I also recommend to people to listen to the work from Dr. Moody, or look for, they can go to YouTube and find people that, there's neurosurgeons, there's different people that had near death experiences, because a lot of them, some are atheists, some are, all different backgrounds, and they tell you it's the similar story. Bottom line, just like you say, Sandra, you're gonna be confronted with, in a kind but realistic way, with things we did in the past, and we're gonna have the opportunity to come back or not. And for those that have come back, they all come back with this feeling of, oh my God, I need to fix, I need to make amends and be nice from now on. So I'm saying, instead of waiting for that, let's start doing it now as much as possible. Everything is energy. Everything is energy. So when we get angry, I mean, I'm Puerto Rican, I'm hot blooded, I can get angry in 2 seconds, but I know it's energy that I don't want it to affect me more physiologically speaking, and I don't want to affect someone, or I don't want to affect relationship that then I have to fix it. So it's double work. So it's all about
Very
choice.
true. It is. Tell us what's in the book. I'm sure it's a lot more, obviously, than you said today, but what can people find if they get a copy?
So like, I'm gonna go to my table of contents. At the beginning, I wanted to talk about my family, and it was interesting because many times they came through. My father, for example, saying, she has a photo of me, and I have a photo of my father, many photos of them. So it was like an ode to them, like a respect to them, and thank you for coming through, and thank you for being my parents. That chapter was very important about my grandparents and my parents. So it was, again, it was a reverence to them. Then I talk about my first cancer, and I put a lot of pictures, because a lot of people that go through cancer, they don't want to share pictures on when they get, like, I have no breasts, I just have scars. And I put the picture there because I want people to get familiarized with, you're gonna go through this, or the person that that had cancer might be going through this, and it's horrible. Like when I had chemo the first time, I have a picture there, and it looked like someone put a hot iron on my chest, because yeah, you get blisters and everything. So then I talked about ESP and personality, so people can relate to. I was hoping for people that might have had ADHD like me, that have been told, "Oh, you're so hyper or whatever, you're so sensitive." Hey, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe there's a connectivity here with the spiritual world that we don't know about. Instead of insulting us so much, maybe help us channelize that energy into other things that are positive, like spiritualism and other things. Then I talk about coping, grieving, and mental health. If I had a choice, I would have only done, like, mostly, other than my parents, I would have done chapter 6 and 7, because 6 is my experiences. Sandra, I know that, when we're in circles and we practice with other mediums or developing mediums, we tend to take notes. So chapter 6 is mostly my notes. Like, oh my God, someone told me this, or someone came through me. And so people know that is all the people that can come through. They're waiting. It's like they're waiting in line for someone to try to open and communicate so they can come through. So I wrote that down. That's that chapter. And then chapter 7 is me talking to them. So it's to motivate people to talk to them. Like when I asked my mom one day, I was in bed and my bed remote started flickering. And for some reason, I thought about my mom. And I told my husband, he's like, oh, it's probably the battery, you know. So I'm like, okay. So it kept happening. So I told my mom, can you give me a feather? And then we saw a feather in the house, and my husband was like, oh, maybe it was the dog that he ate a bird or something like that. I'm like, okay, okay. So I asked my mom, can you be more sure, more explicit about it? And then there's a feather right in front of my bed, not in front of my husband's bed, and there's no other feather around. So I'm like, that's her. And then I tell people, you can tell your whoever you want to communicate, please leave me a feather and during this week. Or it could be a name, and you can tell them, could you tell me your name? It could be in a radio, it could be in a license plate. But give yourself, like, give them at least a week, like a date, and you have to believe it. Just believe one thing, like one song or a name or a feather. My father-in-law, he comes a lot in as a cardinal. And my daughter, when she runs in Michigan by our house, she said, Mommy, Grandpa is always sending me red cardinal because we don't see red cardinals where we live, the part of Michigan. Red cardinal, red cardinals. So that chapter, Spirit Talking to Me, is for people to know ideas on what to do. So again, electricity, feathers, birds. And then I just share at the end my new cancer. And at the end of each chapter, I have like a few questions. So I make it like a workbook. So people to jog their mind and write some notes, and then they can obviously keep typing it or write it somewhere else or whatever. My intent with the book, it's just to motivate people of any religion, any background, whatever, to just the Spanish version is coming probably next week or so. Yeah, because I want to do the same thing, the Hispanic community. But the goal was just to motivate people that if you have lost someone, you have lost them physically. They're still around and they're grasping for ways to communicate with us. And I also want to tell people, when people come, many people come and say at the beginning, oh, but there are charlatans. Well, yeah, they are charlatans in every profession. Every profession. There's going to be charlatans. Sorry, I'm plugging something here. There's going to be charlatans in every profession. So we should not stay in the frame of mind of, oh, they're going to steal our money or they're going to tell us things that are not real. Well, find a good medium then, right? The experience that I've had is that most people that get into mediumship, they really have a good heart. They really have a good intention, because mediumship is, you really cannot, it's not easy to make a living from it. So like me, I do it out of for free or donation or in church, so I want to tell people, whoever have told you that people are trying to use you, then find a reputable one. If you feel in your heart that the person is just trying to take your money, then don't ask that person to help you and don't go back to them. But I don't think there's that many. And also, we're mediums, but we're instruments. And we all have a bad day. We're humans first, because we're here in the human world. We have to deal with human things. So there's no perfection. So I remember one day I was practicing, and one of my sisters, she's like, the other medium that we were in the group described someone for my sister. And at the end of the reading, my sister's like, oh, why didn't you tell me the name? And I said, oh, names are not that easy, trust me. So we're all gonna make mistakes. I don't know of a medium that is 100% perfect all the time. So
No, I agree with you. Could you spend a little time just talking about grief? Not only people who pass away, but also getting an illness, other reasons, separations, divorce. We experience grief. Would you have just some words on that?
grieving. What exactly do you want me to talk to you about?
Maybe just some advice, because I know you can have a guilty mind. You didn't say as much as you wanted to say to someone. Obviously, there's the physical pain. Maybe a tool or two to maybe meditate, be in the present moment, be forgiving. Don't listen to the busy brain making you guilty. I don't know. Words from Dr. Melba.
So depending on how we lost the person that we're talking about, that's why I say That's why I say today, if you're listening to this interview, go ahead and start apologizing to everyone that you can. So you will feel less guilty during if you lose a person. Like every time your significant other leaves the house or you haven't talked to them, always end with "I love you" or something positive. So it will be less guilt because we're the one that had to deal with it at the end here, right? Also, there's many phases of grieving. And obviously, at the beginning is denial. No, it cannot be true. Then we're angry. Then we're trying to make some agreement with God or with life in regards to what happened. But at the end, when the person is physically gone, they're physically gone. It's really us, the one that have to deal with that. So, in regards to how to cope, yes, we can, if we want to get information, of course we can go through a medium, but we can do other things, like we can write down a letter to that person. We can say all the things that we believe that we didn't say or that we would like to change or improve in the communication, like apologizing and like saying, I should have told you this and that. Get it out of your system because it's going to stay in our subconscious and it's going to give us a lot of problems later on. All the information we have in our subconscious should come to the conscious so then we can get it out of our system. So one of the mechanisms will be write a letter. You can also do a voice memo. You can do a video. Just you can also sit in the quiet, in the silence, and try to communicate. Have a candle or have a light and try to communicate with that person. Just try to improve the relationship. That's very important. The other thing that we can do, obviously, is think, who do we have left? Do we have other kids? Do we have a husband, a wife? Do we have dogs? Do we have a job? Find other things that keep us healthy, not unhealthy. Because if we go to a corner and we just stop living this life, then it's going to be worse. We're going to fall in depression, and sooner or later, we're going to have to end up talking to someone, and we might have to deal with chemistry. We might have to get a antidepressant or other things to help us deal with that, which is really temporarily because an antidepressant is not going to fix our pain. So, also, if you can reach out to support groups of other people that are grieving, but it comes to a point, no one should tell you how long should you grieve. When people start rushing about you should stop grieving, I believe it is because you're not eating or you're not bathing or you're not paying your bills because now you are like, we're punishing ourselves. We're kind of killing ourselves in a way. And there's no words to tell another person how to feel better for a loss. But what I would suggest people that have lost someone, other than what I've said, is it comes to a point that please try to continue taking care of yourself because the person that you just lost physically doesn't want you so sad. They don't want us to be sick and depressed and stop living the rest of our lives because they love us and now they are free of the pain, free of the sadness, and they want us to be like that. And they don't want us to remember them like that. I know that a lot of mediums and a lot of sitters, if you don't tell them how the person passed, they're not happy. I don't tell to when I'm doing a reading, I don't quickly get into how do they pass because I don't think they don't wanna communicate. They don't want you to be remembering how they pass. That's something that can trigger many, many negative things.
It's how they lived and shared memories. And
Exactly. I personally, because of my psychology background, I tend to talk more about it. I talk a little bit, maybe a little bit of the physical. I talk a little bit about the relationship, but I talk more about the personality, and that's what I enjoy. And the sitters that I have, most of them they like it because they're like, oh yeah, I felt like it was here in the room. To me, that's more important than how they pass. They do not want us to remember them how they pass. Please remember that, people.
Oh, I have one more question for you, and then I'm going to ask you if you just have any closing words for the people. But I want to ask you about fear. We all have this voice in our head that can be very negative and try to convince us of the worst case scenario. And I'm sure not only when you were diagnosed or you're with your husband, anything, there's that voice that comes in. How can we deal with the voice of fear?
I understand the voice of fear, and in the military, they always train us for worst case scenario, worst case scenario, worst case scenario. Well, we have to remember that everything has the opposite. So the voice of fear, we should also have the voice of not being fearful, being positive, being optimist. There's nothing to fear. Are you talking about the fear of dying?
Could be the fear of getting diagnosed with something, the fear of a loved one leaving
Yes.
you.
So
It can be brutal.
yes, yes. And the fear is rational. We're humans. But the fear will not fix or prevent. If we're very worried about something, then we should do something about it. Like, for example, if I'm drinking alcohol 24 hours a day and I'm worried about having liver cancer or having an accident, okay, then I should slow down or cut down. So if we have any power over the fear, then we should start working on it right now. But being anxious is being worried about the future that is not here yet. Just like being depressed, it tends to be being sad about the past that is not here anymore. So it's better to try the best we can with being in the now. In regards to the fear again, let's try not to go to the extreme. Let's try to go extreme. Let's give the opportunity to not having fear. Otherwise, we're gonna be immobilized. We're gonna be frozen, and we're gonna be in a wrong state of mind. We're gonna be angry about something that might never happen. Like right now, I know that I have cancer in my spine and in my liver. I cannot be worrying about, okay, I might have cancer in my eye, I might have cancer in my toe. I cannot be worried about that. Stage 4, I was told 2 to 5 years. It's been a year and a half. So am I gonna say, am I gonna die in 5? Well, hopefully not. I can't live it. We can't live in fear. Fear doesn't do anything but drain us. And our loved ones do not want us in fear. They want us smiling and happy.
I love that you say live in the present moment. And I love that you say worst case scenario, because if we can mentally think, okay, what could happen? Okay, let me plan for that. Put it aside, live in the present moment. Good words. With our time left today, Dr. Melba, any last words to share with our audience?
Thank you all for having me today. And again, the intention of my book, if you ever get to see it, Healing Talks, it's to give you an opportunity, a beautiful reminder that no one dies. Our bodies dies, but no one dies. We're all here. We're just waiting for opportunities to re-engage and recommunicate and continue being happy and loving each other. That will be it.
Well, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thank you, Sandra. It was really my honor. I'm so happy to be able to talk with you more.
Yeah, I'm excited. And for our listener or our viewer, you can check out her website, drmelbastetz.com. The book is called Healing Talks, A Dying Patient's Story. And what I'm really left with was inspiration and power from this beautiful woman facing all kinds of challenges. You shine. You're strong. I know you've had your good days and bad days. You're human, but who you're being for humanity and your words will live on. You're right. We're all dying. We are. It's just a matter of when. If we can find what's true in our hearts and if we can share what we love, we shine. And that's what I see in Dr. Melba. So as a reminder, my friends, you can come to my website, which is wedon'tdie.com. If you don't yet have a copy of my book, just enter your name and email address at the bottom of the page there. I have a second podcast called Shades of the Afterlife that you'll enjoy too. That's more news of the afterlife, while this episode is more interviews one-on-one. Lots of good things there too. We have a wonderful Facebook group. You can see past episodes. And I mentioned that free Sunday gathering. There's a medium demonstration included. It's a non-denominational spiritual service that is just beautiful, fun, inspiring. And then at the end, we have a medium demonstration completely free. So all of that is at wedon'tdie.com. So in closing, my name is Sandra Champlain. I'm always so happy to be your host on We Don't Die. I do believe that life is an education for the soul and that your life here on earth is important. So make those amends, have that life review now, live in the present moment, forgive, have joy, and look in the mirror. You are one of a kind. Share your love, your light, your passion, make a difference for others, and you can never go wrong. So I really want to thank you for listening or for watching, and we'll see you again soon.